This is episode 268 of Jumblethink.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to Jumblethink, where we interview amazing people about their journey of turning dreams and ideas into reality. Along the way, we're going to share some tips on how you can turn your own dreams and ideas into reality too. On today's show, our guest is Jim Caruso. More about Jim in a moment. Whether you're a new listener or a longtime fan, wherever you listen to podcasts, head on over and click that magical subscribe button. That way, you can catch up on past episodes and never miss an episode of Jumblethink. Now let's jump into today's episode with Jim Caruso. Hey there, welcome to Jumblethink. My name is Michael Woodward. I am your host. We have a very, very fun show lined up for you today. Before we get going, we want to thank our sponsors for today's show, Penji and North American TEFL. If you want to travel the world and you want to make a career as you do it, teaching English as a foreign language is an incredible way to do it. North American TEFL is here to help get you the certification so that you can go teach in those foreign countries. You can check them out at NorthAmericanTEFL.com. We also want to thank our friends over at Penji. Penji is your source for unlimited graphic design at a low monthly rate. We love them. We think you'll love them. And as a listener of Jumblethink, they're going to give you 15% off your first month. Here's how you can connect. Head on over, Penji, PENJI.co, that's .co, not .com, and use the code JUMBLE for your 15% off your first month. On today's show, our guest is Jim Caruso. He's the co-founder and CEO of Apollo Program. They are a software company that provides businesses with powerful intelligence on people to make marketing more informed, accurate, and ultimately more effective. This is a super fun conversation. We talk a lot about data, using data, understanding data, and then how to actually turn that data into reaching your audience. This episode was recorded live at Podcast Row in New York City at Stand Up New York. Super fun event. If you haven't checked it out already, there are more events coming up soon. So check that out at podcast-row.com. I could tell you more about Jim. I could tell you a lot more about Apollo Program, but instead, let's jump into the conversation so you can hear from his own words what they're creating and how you can use data to better impact your audience. Here we go. We are with Jim Caruso and talking Apollo Program and his company and what they are doing. It's cool stuff, and super excited about this conversation. Thanks for being on the show.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
We're at Podcast Row here in New York City, right at Stand Up New York, which is fun because we get to do this in person.
Yeah.
We're doing more and more of our interviews in person. It's a lot more fun, and
it's way better. Yeah.
It's good to see your face. So
for sure.
Thank you so much. I want to step back. We're going to talk about Apollo Program. We're going to talk about big data. We're going to be talking about how to understand what your data is telling you. We're going to talk about a lot of cool stuff that really applies to entrepreneurs and marketing. I want to start out and hear your story of how you got to here, because the journey of entrepreneurship, the journey of starting these things is not a very linear one always. Yeah. It's not one that is typical. So I want to hear your story. Tell us how you got to Apollo Program. What was kind of that process of entrepreneurship and getting from point A to point Z?
Sure. Yeah. So I think a couple interesting, what do you look back, you call them milestones. They're more like random events that seemingly happen along the way. And so, the first was, I think, being exposed to a culture of entrepreneurship and hard work early on, in my youth. My father started a couple of software companies, and I remember, as I was young, kind of seeing it. One of them was him driving around installing software for pharmacies on a floppy disk. To go to each pharmacy, install, so be in the back seat with my mom, and we were driving around on the weekends, and because he had a day job and he was doing it on the side, and the spirit of hard work, right? And I think there's entrepreneurship kind of encapsulates a lot of things and feelings, and one of those things is an incredible work ethic. Yeah. I think the other is wanting to look at the world differently, break the mold, and so you get exposed to those things as emotions early on, and then later on in your life, you start to put those together. The second was, I was in college. Like people ask me, "Oh, do you sound like you're in software technology? Do you code?" I haven't done that since college. But that was a really interesting time. And again, this is happenstance. But at the time, there was no functional course or whatever you want to call it for product management or program management, right? It was either you're a developer and you code the product, or you're the business guy and you sell the product. And so I took a course, the program I was in college was literally called Management and Information Sciences. So there was coding, there was management. So I guess it was the closest you would get. And then coming out of college, my father had started another consulting company that was pivoting into being a software company. So he was trying to, turn that consulting business into a platform. And I went there and I started building the product and learned how to do product management. And then the third, you leap forward a few years from that, I figured out how to do this, started a couple of things along the way. Not, like I always say, none of which, were all that successful, if you will. Otherwise I'd be on an island somewhere, but learned a hell of a lot, right? About, what not to do, right? How not to build products for yourself, how not to develop things that no one wants and try to force it on them. All those kinds of fun lessons of technology development, how to not spend a lot of money having developers do things that, you don't need, features that you don't need. I mean, I could go,
oh, I understand that one. I've been there, done that. I mean, as a developer, there's so many times that you try to educate your customer or your client and they're like, oh, no, we need it. And then they find out 6 months later, no, neither did you need it, nor did your customer need it, nor does the world need it.
Right. And the very critical lesson that you're pointing to from the other side is like developers will say yes to anything because it means more work. So like, great. Yeah, you want to build this whiz bang thing that no one needs? Got it. It'll take me 100 hours. This is going to be amazing. It's so cool. Yeah. But, and then the third was getting into advertising and into marketing. And that really happened completely by chance. I remember, very vividly, going on the interview, trying to study up, figure out what a CPM and CTR and all these
all the acronyms that.
Yeah. And there's no now you could take, not that, there's still very few, I think, digital marketing advertising courses, but, it was hard to even find that information, So, and I taught, it took me 9 months to figure out what anyone was talking about. I remember my first requirement, was to build a dashboard. I thought I did it right. They come back to my boss and go, that guy doesn't know. What he's doing. So, it was a steep learning curve. But, those three things kind of then fast forward to now led me to this place where I had I had a lot of knowledge about marketing and advertising from a technology perspective. I was able to understand the business and the tech, and I was always kind of sat in the middle of both of those things. And, I just have a latent, as my wife says, no matter what you say or do, on the outside, you have this latent desire that seems to kind of disrupt and break things and want to, and that before that phrase became popular. And now it's like kind of, cliche, but to go against the grain, right, a little bit. So I think that's how, long-winded way of getting to where I was today.
Wow, crazy. And going to like the whole educational sphere and all of that and what that looks like, it's kind of different because a lot of the education is industry specific now. We sent one of our project managers down to a course and it was put on by Silicon Valley, not by a college or university. And it's just kind of one of those funny things that how we learn and how we develop our skill sets and our desires and our passions is radically changing. For you, as you've gone through this journey of going from being around your dad and seeing that aspect of it, and that was in Silicon Valley, right? And
that was in New Jersey.
Oh, Jersey.
Yeah.
Okay.
The birthplace of soft. Now, he later moved to Silicon Valley and did some stuff out there. But yeah, this was when I was younger. I grew up in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. A lot of people do.
I'm just sorry that you lived in Jersey.
Yeah, I was waiting for the one exit kind of thing. Yeah, I get that all.
Yeah.
It's a very underrated state.
So you go through all these different processes, and all of those are tools and skills and abilities that stack on each other and give you power to play in the spaces that you play in. Mm-hmm. And I think often we have been taught, and I think that's a model that's being broken. I don't know if that's good or bad. Have been like, pick your career, stay with your career, do it for your life. Yeah. And now it seems like so many people are jumping from role to role or company to company, whether that's a better opportunity or finding a company that cares about them or whatever their motivator is. But I don't think a lot of people have taken what you've taken, which is the ability to go from sector to sector or space to space and stack it and really see that as a power play for them for their career to build for the future. So
I love that.
As you kind of look back at your career and it leads you to Apollo Programming and that journey to get there, what's one of the takeaways that you have about this journey of, like if you were to get to Apollo Programs 10 years ago, before or 20 years ago or whatever in this process, you wouldn't have had the skills or the abilities or the understanding to put all of this together.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about how these different skills, while they don't seem like people always would attribute them to success, actually come together to a marinade of something special.
Yeah, it's incredible, and I love this topic. It's something I don't talk about, but you absolutely nailed it. Which is, I think you have two things as an entrepreneur or a leader in a company. It doesn't have to be your own company, but just and the one is, if you want to push forward, right, you're going to invariably be doing things that other people around you question why you're doing them.
Yeah.
Why are you taking those meetings? Why are you talking to those people? Those people don't help you solve the 10 things you need to do today.
Yeah.
Right? But that's and part of that is you have to have an open mind to know that exactly what you're saying, which is the long game here is that, not everything is going to be A to B, right? But I'm going to take a meeting today, talk to someone about what they're trying to do, maybe try to help them. And in 6 months, they might talk to someone who goes, hey, I really am looking for a company that does X, Y, and Z. And they go, you should talk to the guys from Apollo. They're really smart.
Yeah.
You never know how you're going to get there. And I think the other element is you're spot on, which is, I've worked in government, compliance, education.
Sorry again.
Yeah, education, mobile gaming, e-gifting, enterprise, B2B, like social software, and then marketing and advertising. And, what seems seemingly random is not, right? It was a pattern of me going in, trying to figure out something maybe in the industry. I didn't know all the context of it, but figure out how to solve problems, right? Figure out how to deliver products and solutions to people that needed them. And absolutely have learned so many lessons. We could spend a whole thing just on, that time where I was building out a dashboard for college, right? For a university. We had this software for universities. I was able to use knowledge about how I did that to then sell our company today into a university to help them. The connections aren't even always on the same layer, right? They're so deep in terms of, hey, I did something over here for this and now I can apply it over here. You never know when that's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that, and I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to say it this way because, well, it's my show. Yeah. So many people don't get that entrepreneurs can see a picture that's not yet painted. You talk about an artist and they come in and you go, they can envision the piece that they're creating, whether it's in marble and they're chiseling away to the form that they want, or painting, or a photographer understanding that they have to wait for a specific moment. And yet entrepreneurs are in that same category where they're able to see a vision that hasn't been created yet. Yeah. So for you, let's talk about that moment where you saw the picture of Apollo program. And of course it wasn't called that at the time. It was, but you saw that, hey, marketing, we have, I was listening to your interview with James Altucher just a few minutes ago upstairs. And you were talking about how marketers have a power of data that probably shouldn't be placed with marketers. It should be somewhere else so that you can take that data and use it differently. So talk to us a little bit about that aha moment where you went, something's not quite right here. Yeah. And we need to realign this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, to kind of reinforce that point that you just made, not only is it the vision to see something that's not completed, the big, talk about lessons learned. One of the big lessons I've learned along the way is that picture is probably going to look nothing like what you thought it was going to look like, even in your head, right? Not only can no one see it, it's not going to look anything like you thought it was going to look like. So you have to get comfortable with that. And it's a really hard thing, I think, for a lot of entrepreneurs is, you have such passion for your project, for your company, whatever it is, and you want to have that thing come to life the way you intended it to. Yeah. And that's very often not the case, right? Yeah. And for us, it was a similar road here, right? Which was, we saw this moment of, everybody's looking at the picture of how do I target people? How do I get my message in front of them? And how do I pound them into submission with that message? Because that's what I want to tell them. And that's what I think they care about. Versus, and a lot of this, and we were talking about it with James well, which was, during the last presidential election, a pivot on one side to, hey, let's figure out what people care about. And then let's try to position ourselves in a unique way. Well,
I want to pause you there because part of the story that I heard that our listeners probably haven't heard is that you were actually pitching even a political candidate from the 2016 election, talking to them about how data could actually be used to understand how to communicate your message better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and that was, and that wasn't, unique per se. I think it was this lens of tying together these disparate functions within marketing, right? To your point, creative often lives over here, creativity is over here, and these guys have a process, and the media guys have a process here, and the data guys have a process here. And it's very hard to triangulate all of those things because of the way marketing has evolved, which is those things have become completely disparate disciplines, right? And often don't live, and we were talking a little bit before about, how this, has evolved. They don't live in the same building, right? And the tech guys have their stuff and the data guys have their stuff. And the aha became, hey, we're not out here just getting more data, and we're not just out here to, build a better database of inputs or outputs. We're here to help translate those into something that can be actionable. And therefore, start something smarter, but also enable us to build out a capability by which we're not just making people smarter, we're helping them to accomplish, business objectives or solve problems that they have.
How are you finding purpose in what you do?
Yeah, I think for me, it's you have to have a deep belief. I think when you get up every day and you start to do the kind of work that you're doing, where you're changing, you have to convince people, you have to change people's ways of doing things. The purpose, has to be big enough, I think, to make it feel like you're not out here wasting your time. That you're onto something, but at the same time, it can't be. And I would say this to my team a lot too, is like, it can't be so big that you lose sight of what you're trying to get to. Yeah. Right. And it's that delicate balance of, every day I'm going to wake up and I'm going to find, a way to move this forward. Right. And I'm going to find the one thing that I can do to make it better than it was yesterday. And you kind of gain a lot of purpose from that, as opposed to if you set your sights at, and you kind of talked about it, 10 years ahead, you don't know what that's going to look like. And that can become, not only potentially negative, but it can almost become detrimental, right? Because you'll never get there, right? If you're focused so far ahead. Yeah.
I also want to ask you, what's one big challenge you're currently working to overcome at Apollo program?
Yeah, for us, I think it's, we're early. We're relatively early in terms of the company.
How long have you been around?
We've, as a company, have been around about a year and a half.
But the infancy started
came 3 years ago.
Okay, so 2015, 2016,
July 2016.
Okay,
yeah. So we kind of marinated on it for about a year and a half, and kind of did a proof of concept, and then said, okay, there's something here. Yeah, let's build it into its own company. I think so. For us, it's about the big challenge right now is about getting our name out there, right, and telling more people our story and helping more people.
What's the next big goal you have at Apollo program?
For us is really, this year is kind of a transitional year where we've been lucky and fortunate to find some great partners. Yeah. And our goal right now is to keep and retain and grow those relationships into next year.
Super cool. Well, we are going to be back with Jim to continue this conversation. We're going to talk about big data. We're going to talk about how to use big data to understand the messages that you need to share. We're going to talk about a lot more stuff, maybe even the space program.
Very timely.
Yeah, very timely. Yeah. It is, 50 years of Apollo. So it's a new season of Apollo using data. And maybe that will help them get back to the moon too. So we will be right back.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends over at Penji. Penji helps startups, agencies, small businesses, big corporations, and marketing teams achieve more with unlimited graphic design support at one flat monthly rate. Their easy-to-use online platform pairs you with a professional designer and lets you create as many design projects as you want. Think of it as your monthly subscription to top-notch design with no contracts, no hourly billing, just fast, simple, and affordable graphic design for all of your needs. We love them. We think you'll love them. And as a listener of Jumblethink, they're doing something cool and giving 15% off your first month when you visit Penji, PENJI.co. Again, that's .co, not .com. Use the code JUMBLE and you'll get that 15% off. So head on over, Penji.co, use the code JUMBLE, and start getting the graphic design you've always wanted. We also want to thank our friends over at North American TEFL. Did you just graduate from university and you're not sure what step to take next? Or maybe you're looking for an exciting career transition? If you are interested in exploring the world while still earning income, you can teach English as a foreign language in one of a dozen countries across the world. From China to Colombia to Japan and beyond, if you want to get a work visa, the majority of embassies and employers in the educational field require teachers to earn certification in teaching English as a foreign language. For more information about how you can travel the world as a teacher, see new exciting places, and even build a career, visit www.northamericantefl.com. That's www.northamericantefl.com. Now let's return to our conversation with today's guest, Jim Caruso.
We are back with Jim Caruso. He is the guy behind Apollo program. All right. Most significant question. It's the question everyone wants to know.
Right.
How can people find and connect with you?
How can people find and connect with me? They can email me or text me. The best way to reach me, is through jim@apolloprogram.com. That's how people can find me.
Cool. We'll have that, and we'll have links in the episode notes. So wherever you're listening, you can check it in the episode notes. If you're listening on radio, go on over to jumblethink.com. You'll find the links there in the episode notes. I want to pivot here to the conversation of big data.
Okay.
Data is significant, and we have more and more data than ever before. I remember a couple years ago in the web space, because that's the space we work in, I was sitting down with a client, and we're reviewing their site, talking about usability, UX, UI, about messaging and what they're doing, and the person there, very well-intentioned, she had gone to a marketing school and said, well, this is what they taught us. And I said, but that's not what your data tells you.
Yeah.
It's not the true picture. And she's like, yeah, but this is what we were taught to do, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, yeah, but the real world tells you you're wrong.
Right.
And you're well-intentioned. That's good. That's your heart's in the right place. But the data says you are wrong. Mm-hmm. And you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are talking big data. A lot of people are trying to use big data, but they don't know how to actually use it. So how is Apollo program coming in to give the story to help people make the decisions they need?
Yeah, no, the line, and I don't know who it's attributed to, but I've read that I think speaks volumes. So what you're saying is there's oceans of data and puddles of insights.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So yeah, there, and that puddle is what we focus on, right?
Okay.
Which is to say, listen, we're not here to just provide you with more data. We're here to provide the science and the storytelling about how to activate against that data.
Yeah.
So when we work with a client, or we work with a brand, or we work with a person, whoever it might be, right? The goal is what you said, which is use data and intelligence to inform the things that happen. So the woman in your example, she's not wrong, right? But it's not about right and wrong. It's about, hey, you've got a process. If that process is built on a faulty premise, okay, we all know what happens, right? So for us, it's about building hypotheses, right? Asking questions, not saying, hey, we know better than you, or you know better. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
What matters is we've got a series of things we've got to solve for. We've got to figure out how to build a direct-to-consumer brand.
Yeah.
We've got to figure out how to get people to read our content, whatever it might be, right? And we've got to identify, using all the tools at our disposal, our software and our data, but also certainly others, to figure out what the best way to do that is, right? What's the most accurate, efficient, and relevant way to communicate with people. And the output of our system is not just, hey, here's a data profile and here's 10 things you didn't know about them. It's interesting, but it's not useful, right? So what the useful piece becomes, here's 10 things you didn't know about them, and here's 5 ways to use it.
Yeah. And I think that's the interesting thing. You said, it's not about being right or wrong, but not all truth is absolute truth. So what works for one industry, what is true for one, what in the marketing world we do so often is we make assumptions that just because it's true, that it's absolute truth.
Right.
And what may be true for maybe a sports team might not be right for a computer company.
Right.
The premise might be the same, the thought process, but the data won't reinforce that. So before we go much further, we should really define who it is that you serve.
Sure.
So let's ask that question. Who do you serve?
Yeah. So we work directly with brands and companies. Not to say that we don't partner with agencies and other partners, but at the end of the day, we need to arm the people who are making the decisions, or the genesis of the decisions, right? Which typically starts with the brands themselves. Yeah.
Super cool. All right. So it is one thing to have data. is one thing to think you understand data. It's another thing to come up with a strategy.
Yeah.
So give us an example of how you can use data to drive decisions on messaging or connectivity or whatever that is.
Sure. Yeah. So, as a concise way as possible, right? An exercise we're going through with a client might be, hey, we really want to attract sports fans in the state of, Massachusetts, right? Okay. Well, the obvious way to do that is to build some messaging that we think might be interested if you like, interesting to someone who likes football, target you on ESPN and CBS Sports, right? And so forth. The other thing and this is how we would approach it, which is, okay, well, what's the ultimate objective? We're trying to get those people to do what, right? Yeah. Are we trying to get them to convert? Are we trying to, whatever the business problem is? Now let's go look at everything else they're doing outside of sports and figure out how those things influence their decision making, right? Are they interested in sports through the perspective of it's a hobby, right? Are they interested in the perspective of I like to buy a lot of tickets, I like to attend live events? Are they people who are outside of sports interested in motorcycles and skiing and high intensity sports, right? And they're doing that in the real world, and sports is an outlet to do it, as a viewer. Looking at those things, looking at income, age, demographic stuff as well, geography, where physically are these people, then painting the picture of, hey, there's actually 3 ways you should be communicating, right? If you want to pull people in, there's this angle of, the adrenaline of watching live sports is like unlike any other. And then there's this other angle of, the sports, the team, your favorite team is a team just like your family because you're family oriented, right?
Yeah.
Those 2 things are really hard to get to without a lot of data about behavior, right? As I think you can appreciate, And I think that's for us that the trick here is when you move away from that panel-based, self-reported data, which by no means is it wrong or right. Again, it's just a lens, right? Yeah. And then you look at this other thing that says, well, this is how people are behaving in their real life. Now I can use that to then say, here's the kind of messaging that's going to be more relevant. Here's the channels that I want to deliver that on. And here's the medium, right, that I want to do it, whether it be video or something else.
I want to pivot here into a conversation that I think is very important for our time, and that is the importance of privacy with our data.
Yep.
I know that based on hearing what you do and how you do it, that this is basically, to boil it down, identifier washed. Basically, correct, the end user is not identifiable, whether it's their name, their email address, their location. I mean, you probably have
not down to the house or something. Zip code.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe not IP addresses, correct, especially with GDPR.
No IP. Yeah, nothing that can identify you in any way.
Yeah,
nothing that can also be used to target or reach you or in any way communicate with you at an individual level, anonymous or not.
Yeah.
It's all aggregate.
So basically what you're doing for corporations, and I know you've worked with Carhartt, you've worked with some other great organizations and companies, is that you are giving them understanding of how to message and reach that audience. You're not giving them an actual marketing campaign from the standpoint of here's your list.
Correct.
And I think that's a big distinction because historically it's I'm going to go out and buy my list.
Yeah.
I'm going to go buy my mailing list, and then that turned into my emailing list, and then that turned into my Facebook list, and it's evolved.
Right, exactly. Yep.
And that's kind of like a throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, because even though they might be the right audience because you bought the list,
right,
might not be that they're actually qualified for the message that you're sharing or something like that.
And what is the message?
Yeah.
Right. That's what you just said is also missing that whole component of I could have the best list in the world if I don't know what to tell them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So navigating this actually makes it a little bit purer for the companies to be able to come in and target the people without having to get into the privacy issues, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is it is a very black and white issue to me.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a black and white issue for most people. It's a black and white issue for me in that you either do this right 100% of the time or you're wrong.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So the minute I ever compromise our stance on any of this or how we go about doing any of this, that's it, right?
Well, and I think that raises a really good question. In the tech space, the tech is only as good as the integrity of the people who run the business.
Absolutely. That's fair.
I mean,
totally.
there's a whole argument with like Jeff Bezos, who said, hey, I want to go and be able to automate more, and these aren't actually going to replace, and then we want a unified minimum income for everyone because all these jobs are going to go away and stuff like that. That's altruistic. But the reality is that that's probably not going to play out that way.
Yeah.
For you, how do you keep that intact, that DNA of that purity of how you use it for when you have investors who want to push that edge?
Right.
Or you pass the company on to a company that's bought it out. How do you keep the integrity of your creation in place so that you keep the purity of what you're building there? Because you said it's either a black and white issue.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that?
Yeah, no, I think it's, while I've got the ability to control it somewhat, right? While it's in my realm, I could speak to that. Someone else takes it down the road, it'll be a little bit more tricky. But I think, even then that becomes a decision of, if someone wants to buy the company, do I think I'm selling it to someone who, I trust, right? To do the right thing with it. But leading up to that point, or hopefully that point, it is something that you have to have. I know, you have core values and mission statements and all that kind of fun stuff, that people kind of gloss over, but those are one of the things where you have to make it clear, that we're not going to do that. We're not going to compromise that. And we actually want to take a stand against that, and do it in a very public way. Yeah. So, I think it's almost one of those things where, and you mentioned some examples where I think you see, right, if it's all shrouded in secrecy, it's very easy because you can kind of recuse yourself of like, well, I didn't know, we didn't say that, we didn't say we weren't going to do that, we didn't say anything, right? It's like lying by omission, right? We're very public, right? We're a privacy first, company who that's what we do, that's what we stand for, and by putting that out in the world, I think that helps as much as you can. I don't think there's an easy answer to what you asked, but I think there's a lot of things that you can do. And the short answer is I'd rather be, unsuccessful as a company and upheld those principles than the other way around. Which is really an incredible thing in the age that we live in. Everyone is willing to sell, not everyone, but so many people are willing to sell their integrity for something. Well, I think that a lot of the issues in and around specifically internet-related privacy comes from a lack of understanding around how these things actually work. I think it comes from a desire, and it probably tails of what you just said, which is a desire to go after what's easiest, right? And it's a lot easier to just take someone's identity, figure out who they are, what they're doing, and target the hell out of them with ads, right? That's a lot easier thing to do. It's a lot harder to build what we're doing, right? We're trying to do. So, I think that, on the flip side, if we look at like GDPR and privacy laws and how they're being, Asia's got some really interesting legislation coming to pass right now. There's some stuff going on in this space. California, New York probably soon after that. So this model will have to become more of a standard model because of the legislation that says you can't do that with data. I think it's funny. So what I just said about being easy, right? That almost works in our favor, right? Because what's happened is if it's become so easy and cheap for people to target ads, and ads have become really cheap to buy, right, or sell, depending on which side you're on, that it has enabled people to get lazy, right, for lack of a better word. And like I said, if you have to, it's easy to be lazy about it because you go, well, I don't really know if this works or not, but it's so cheap that I can just put out a lot of stuff, see if it works, target people that have specific things that I know, and I'll figure it out from there. What's really hard is trying to do all this before you do any of that, right? Trying to figure out what people are, what they care about, where to talk to them, where to be relevant to them, and then go create your campaign, right, and your media buy. And so I think that a lot of this actually works in our favor. A lot of the GDPR stuff and the privacy stuff you mentioned, I think is predicated on a couple of things. One of them is just consent, right? Do people know? Are they consenting to have their data collected? Do they even understand why the internet is free? Probably not. That just gets completely glossed over. It's like there's a reason that the internet is free. But once I think that happens, I think it's a pendulum. It swings back and forth. But I think by having people more educated about it is actually a good thing. And I think eliminating a lot of the easy, lazy ways that have come about from behavioral targeting will be better. I have opinions of my own about GDPR as a web developer and some of the ignorance of how that was written, and so in interpretations. But that's a lot of people. That's a different story for a different day. This is, of course, about Apollo Program today. Remind people how they can find what you're doing. Sure. So you can find us, on social media, but our website is apolloprogram.com. I like to say that someone luckily in the 1960s forgot to, there was no internet yet, so they forgot to take the domain. So it's super easy to remember, apolloprogram.com, and, check us out and definitely reach out. We are going to be back with Jim Caruso to do rapid fire questions.
Can you believe that the official start of fall is only a few weeks away? I know for me, fall is the best time of year. There's a crispness in the air, the rustling of the leaves, and that fresh apple cider. Soon, Halloween will be upon us. The start of all the Hallmark movie specials, family time around the Thanksgiving dinner table, and the Christmas season. It truly is my favorite time of year. But for many of us, it's not just the changing of seasons from summer to fall, but it's the changing of seasons in our own life. Maybe it's the birth of a new child, transitioning in your job, or going from college and into the workplace. As we see the seasons change, it's a great time to reflect on new possibilities. Here at Jumble Think, we are here to help. We are hard at work at bringing you the first ever idea camps. We've been talking about it for a while, and we've gotten great feedback. So, to help you along and give you that tools and inspirations to turn those dreams and ideas that are deep inside of you into reality, we've made it even easier by launching our first ever idea camp as a virtual idea camp. So if you are ready to move forward and move from the dream and into reality, then head on over to jumblethink.com/idea camps to learn more about what we're doing. You can sign up for more information and get ready to join us for our first ever idea camps. So head on over right now, jumblethink.com/idea camps. Now let's jump back into our conversation with Jim Caruso for rapid fire questions.
Mettre l'aiguille sur le disque. Mettez le contact. Reposez votre.
We are back with Jim Caruso. All right. Toughest part of the program. Are you ready for rapid fire questions?
Guess so. We'll find out in a minute.
All right. As a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Movie director.
That's cool. You going to do it one day?
Probably not. Yeah,
okay.
Having done this, I don't know if I'd make. Well, we'll see. Maybe.
All right. What's one tip you'd give someone with a big idea or dream and they don't know where to start?
I'd say put one foot in front of the other.
What's one big lie about entrepreneurship you'd like to break?
I think that, the ends always justify the means.
What's one big change you'd like to see in the world?
Cooling down the planet.
Okay. What do you want your legacy to be?
That my kids, admire me and respect what I've done.
Where do you find inspiration?
Through my family. Yeah.
What is one book you think every dreamer and entrepreneur should read?
It is the Ben Horowitz book, and I can't think of the name. It's a great book. I've read it so many times, so I just can't think of the name. Yeah.
So just get all of Ben's books.
No,
read all of them.
It's he just goes through and he tells you, like, hey, by the way, a lot of books are BS because they everything tries to lay it out as like, oh, if I do these 10 things, I'll be successful. It's actually really hard. Yeah. And here's just a bunch of stuff I learned by doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Speaking of success, how do you define success?
I think success is as a company achieving a lot of our mission, changing minds, changing hearts and minds. And I think for me personally is impacting a lot of people, not so much through the company, but just personally. What's
one trend you're currently excited about?
Well, I think it's related to what we talked about, which is all the stuff with the private, with the privacy, right? Yeah. And a focus back on consumers. Yeah. I think that's going to play out in so many interesting ways.
What is one habit that is helpful in your life as an entrepreneur?
Hard work.
Okay.
Yeah, hard work. It's a habit. I can't sit still.
Okay. Yeah. What's one thing you wish you would have known when you first started out?
I think, I had someone tell me this later on, and he drew it out on a whiteboard, and I can't do that here, but it was, he's basically like, listen, the company's probably going to the growth of the company is hopefully going to look like a pretty straight line, and your emotions are probably going to look like this wacky, EKG, right? Up and down, up and down, up and down. And the trick is to try to narrow that delta, right? And keep your emotions as close to that actual growth, like what's actually happening as possible. And I think about that a lot. He's a mentor of mine, and he told me that, and I think about it all the time because it's so true. It's keeping that all in check as you deal with the roller coaster.
If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what do you think you'd be doing?
Despite all the things that say you shouldn't do this, probably have a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I love
You look
cooking.
a little like Joe
Bastianich. Yeah.
I see it. It's there.
Yeah. Well, we're from, but I love cooking, love eating, I love feeding people. I think it makes, it's great to put a smile on people's faces, right? By feeding them well. So, but restaurant business is a tough business.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have lots of friends in that industry.
Yeah.
I like their food. I don't like having Yeah. Our final rapid fire question. What is one dream you're still wanting to fulfill in your own life?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done this yet, but I'd love to exit a company, have a company exit, whatever that might look like, grow something to the point where someone else takes over, they buy us, they acquire us, whatever that might be.
Maybe this will be the first one.
Yeah, hopefully.
As we wrap up, we always leave our guests to have a final thought. What's your final thought for us today?
I think we talked about so many great things. I think that hopefully just my thought is that everyone could take kind of all these different things that we talked about in terms of lessons. And I think going back to the beginning of the one around, everything kind of has a purpose, right? Mm-hmm. And things that might, you might be doing today, you're not sure how you're going to use tomorrow. You might be needing that down the road, and keep an open mind around all of that.
So good. Jim, thank you for taking time out to being here at Podcast Row and being on Jumblethink. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Once again, we want to thank Jim Caruso of Apollo Program for taking time out. You can check him out at apolloprogram.com. We also want to thank our friends over at Podcast Row for having us be a part of their event. You can learn more about Podcast Row by heading on over at podcast-row.com. You can find both of those links in the episode notes at jumblethink.com. We also want to thank our sponsors for today's show, Penji, your source for unlimited graphic design. They're offering 15% off your first month as a listener of Jumblethink. Head on over penji.co. Use the code JUMBLE to get 15% off your first month. We also want to thank our friends over at North American TEFL. You need a certification if you want to teach English as a foreign language abroad. They can help you make that a reality. Head on over www.northamericantefl.com to learn more. If you haven't already, we would love to connect with you, and you can do that by being friends on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Head on over, jumblethink.com. You'll find links to all of our social channels. Let's be friends, let's dream big, and let's change the world together. We have some crazy guests lined up for you in the weeks to come. You need to subscribe to the Jumblethink podcast to make sure you never miss one of those episodes. So head on over to your favorite place to listen to podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, wherever it is that you like to tune in, and subscribe to Jumblethink. So head on over right now, subscribe to the Jumblethink podcast. Now, I believe you were created for something awesome, and as we wrap up today's show, I want to encourage you to get out there, to get after those dreams and ideas, to stop sitting for one day or waiting for some big breakthrough. You've got to make the choices. You've got to step up to the plate and swing big. Sometimes you miss, sometimes you hit it out of the park, but a lot of times it's just that one step to get you closer to making the dreams and ideas inside of you become a reality. No one else is going to make your dreams and ideas a reality, so here's my challenge for you. Take a step today, a small step, a big step, but any step to make your dream and idea a reality. So dream big and change the world around you.
Les enfants peuvent également prendre un moment revitalisant dans quelques mois, lorsque vous aurez bien saisi la technique et que vous serez maître de votre corps. Vous pourrez vous décontracter même en travaillant.